So welcome once more to Signals, a series of interviews where we get to know better the composers with whom Duo Signal is collaborating. And today we have with us Hunjoo Jung. Han, how are you?
Hello.
Hello, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. The first thing that I would like to start, from the very beginning. So I would like to start with your background. And
Okay.
I was interesting to know like the very beginning of it. So when did you started with music? How were your first stages, etc.?
Um, um, I started music as a teenager actually when I was around 14 years old. But I joined like a death metal band as a vocalist
Okay.
actually.
As a vocalist. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, but I don't have any at the time. I didn't have that much classical music background. But my first stage with music came through the guitar actually.
Okay.
So in those early stages, we copied, songs from band like Metallica, Rage Against the Machine,
Oh,
and
super. Yeah.
Ezquerra.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you know about this band?
Yeah, of course. I actually like them very much. Rage Against the
Yeah.
Machine, particularly. Metallica, I'm not so into them, but
Oh,
they are
okay.
they are legends. So I cannot say
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. Mhm. That was my beginning,
Okay, so
but
with
there was not that like professional, there was not professional music,
Mhm.
stage. But yeah, that was how I get into the music.
Okay, but then how from there, how do you get into composition? How do you want to all of a sudden to say, okay, I'm gonna start composing music? And yeah, how did you started with this? And also, did you decided to go and study somewhere, or how was the process?
So I I need so I think I joined the rock band until around 20s, but it didn't work out and most people didn't like our music. And I was thinking my father actually was thinking that I'm wasting time.
Oh,
And so my father actually put me in the in the army. So
okay.
yeah, and
Okay.
I served in the army like around 3 years actually. And then after that, I really want to, okay, I want to, you know, play some music, and I
Mhm.
was get into actually improvisation music.
Yeah.
And then at the time I was, jam and meet a lot of people and we are playing. And then I give some idea and we exchange the ideas. And then at the time I forgot the name, but the pianist came to me and then he suggested me, hey, actually, to be honest, I think your idea is more into new music. And then I asked him, what is the new
What is the
music?
music?
Yeah. So okay, then I will bring some CD and you can listen to it. And then he gave me like some Stockhausen and Xenakis. It's not that really new music, but you know what
Yeah, yeah, totally.
And then I listened to Xenakis music and I was like, wow.
That is something, yeah.
Yeah, this is really something else. And then I wanted to do it, but yeah, that was the start. But the problem was it's not. I was at the time I was 26 years old. I
Mhm.
was too old, and it's very rare to study music that too late,
Yeah.
age. Yeah. So I decided to go to the US to study. So I complete my bachelor, um, New England Conservatory in
Mhm.
Boston, which is known for conservatory approach education.
Yeah.
So I gained a strong grounding in foundation music theory and classical music traditions. So
Mhm.
to me, it was a really great experience because before actually entering school, I didn't even know Bach. So I was like,
That is true. That's quite I mean, you can find many profiles within classical
yeah,
contemporary music, of course, but it is true that many people tend to go to the conservatoire and tend
yeah,
to study, Bach and all these things from the very beginning. So your
yeah,
approach I see is different. Okay, and how was it? How was like going to the conservatoire with
yeah.
your background?
Yes, but at the time I was thinking I'm too old. So when I was entering I was 27 years old. And then my goal was I want to finish this as fast as possible.
Okay.
So I actually, when I think about my bachelor, I didn't that much memory because I tried to finish within 3 years. Mostly people finish like 4 or 5 years. So it took 3 years, and then I also apply. Do you know UC San Diego?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a master PhD program, so they are combination program. I also actually got acceptance from other school, but I decided to go there because, master PhD, combination program. Also, I got the full scholarship, and then I also got the teaching position there. So to me, like, okay, to be there, and also so at UC San Diego, I studied composition with Roger Reynolds. Do you know him?
I don't know him personally, no, but I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
And computer music with Miller Puckett, so who is founder Max MSP. So they, especially Roger Reynolds, taught me, how to perceive and articulate music ideas, and which profoundly shaped compositional approach. So for me, it was great experience. And after that, for my postgraduate studies, I worked with Clemens Gardenstädter in Graz and Ming Zhao in Hanover shortly, not long term, but. And the problem was, my problem was, while academic studies gave me a deep understanding of classical music or art, but the problem is they also kill on authentic artistic identity. So I was always, I was really struggling. So because to me, I personally think, I know I studied a really long time, but education is really it's really careful, because it really sometimes it's really kill their own voice inside. It's really sometimes to try to make a generalize. So at the time during my academia period, I was constantly navigate this tension, learning within academia, but striving to break out from it. So there was the reason that, to be honest, I didn't finish my PhD degree. Okay. And also I didn't finish my postgraduate degree. I always get in there and got something, and then like, okay, but I need to move on.
Okay.
But it was not that, to be honest, it was not. Now I kind of regret because I don't have a PhD degree. So practically I cannot teach,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But at the time I was thinking like, okay, I want to,
Yes, but and were you feeling that academia was cutting your artistic voice? I mean, because so what I mean by this is like, in the end, I hope one has certain agency to decide whether to do what the teachers are saying or to pursue their own path. So, were you feeling that this academic knowledge, so the things that you were learning, were putting you boundaries to the things that you wanted to explore?
I don't know. It depends on person, but when I don't know. Sometimes maybe too much education. I don't know. This is really, to me, I'm taking this as really risky. So if you have a really own voice inside, I think, and then you have a really brave, and then you have a strong your standard in your inside, I think it really doesn't matter if you study and even like PhD, whatever.
Exactly.
But the problem is many composers, when they get entered, like bachelor and then even like early master degree, I saw so many composers, like especially Asian composers, they came to US or the Germany, and then when I listen to their music, it's wow, this is very authentic to me. Like, but it's conservative, but it doesn't actually really matter. Like, I don't want to mention about the name, but I know one of my friend, she's Iranian composer. I cannot still believe that her earlier music is really conservative, but to me it was like something I have never heard this before. But suddenly the problem of her is she moved to Europe to study. Also, she actually studied in Graz,
Mm-hmm.
and then came back to UC San Diego. And her music to me is like very normal, like noise, like
Yeah.
European music.
Yeah.
And then I didn't find any her own voice. Of course, music become much more fancy, I'm very sure. But the problem is, but I can feel, something, her authentic, creativity.
Yeah. I understand. But then, because after the US, you went to Germany.
Yes.
So why did you decide to change, and what made you go to Europe, and in particular to Germany, which is so, so in the center of many cultural European trends, so to say?
Yes. Just to be honest, I start studying composition very late. As I said, I was 27 years old. So I had a limited options because I don't know much about music theory and piano. Skills required for entering music school, Korea and Germany.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I tried 2 times in Korea, but they never accepted me because I don't know this. To be honest, at the time, I barely know C major scale, really.
Okay.
Yeah, so like to them, they don't understand why I'm studying music. But great thing about US was some of music school in the US, they don't require this theory and piano skills. They just, only composition. So at the time, I don't even know how to notate very well, but just composed. And then I applied and I got it. So that's the reason that I decided to go to the US. So like practical reason, And then later on, I decided to move to Germany because I faced severe depression when I was in San Diego. And I felt artistically and personally stuck in San Diego. It's two personal things, so I cannot say many things about this, but
Okay.
I was really, to be honest, I was really unhappy there. And around this time, I got the opportunity to be at Harvard University, like a residency program. And I talk about this with Stephen Nakasugi. Do you know this composer, Stephen
No, I don't
Nakasugi?
know him.
Then he suggested me, and of course, he listened to my music, and I talk about my problem, and he said, how about maybe go to Germany? He suggested maybe Germany can be better for you than the US being. So yeah, that was the reason that I moved to Germany. Yeah.
Okay. And for me, and I guess for the European audience as well, it would be quite interesting to know, I mean, maybe under your perspective, so according to what you have lived, but which difference do you find between both places? Like it could be in terms of music. So what is the music you experience composers were interested in the US? And if it is different from Europe, also, is the audience different? Like, do different kind of people go to concerts in the US and in Europe? I mean, in terms of funding is obviously very different. So which difference could you just highlight for us here?
There are many differences actually. So in the US, contemporary music is mostly very tied to academia. So many happening at school, to be honest. So, but outside of school, there's nothing happening, to be honest. It's really sad, actually.
Okay. Wow.
So only except for New York, Chicago, and San Francisco, and maybe LA. So other cities, I don't think something is happening, only happening at school. So I don't know, this environment encourages serious music research. Actually, that's true, but lacks a strong connection to non-academic audience, to be honest. So I mean, of course, in Germany also many people don't know much about new music, but US is like really nothing. And funding also often comes from private foundations and donations. So US, the American government doesn't that much support
Yeah.
artists in this way.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, of course, you know well, in Europe, festivals and government funding play a larger role in supporting composers.
Mhm.
But the biggest difference lies in the cultural approaches is, I think, I'm very sure, I feel like in the US, it's more like independence is emphasized. Like if you see the, like the past, like John Cage and many other, pioneer composers, if you see, of course, there are many interactions with other composers and, there's something's happening there, but actually they're very independent. They're not much about that much interaction. So each composer is very, I like, one thing I really like about US is very independent. And then you can do whatever you want. And it's really a lot of variety, really a lot of variety. But on the other hand, in Europe, music is more intertwined with historical traditions and trends. So if you go to the festival, often reflect a sense of, like a style or influence. If you go to the, almost like a fashion show. If you go to the festival, especially if you go to the, German festival, we can clearly see, okay, this is the happening here. And then suddenly next year, some other composers following this. So it seems like there, to me, US is always has a like pioneer. The Europe is more like there's some leader, okay, style leader and then followers, so there always has some historical stream,
Yeah.
That's the huge difference.
Yes.
Of course, there are many variety in Europe too, but not as much as America.
Sure. I totally understood. Yeah. I totally understood, and I can picture it very well. I was gonna ask you, how do you like the fact that there are trends here in Europe that people follow? What is your opinion regarding that?
Okay.
It's a big thing, I know. That's why I'm smiling. But because it's also something that interests me particularly, and I guess for the rest of the people who are gonna listen to this, because trends exist, no? So as a composer, in general, what is your take on this, or your opinion of people following them?
This is the most struggling things that I am being in Germany, to be honest. To me, I really can't understand this. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm as a composer, I think most important thing is they have to just have own thing and to speak about their own voice rather than just following. But the biggest problem is if you see in the, I don't know, in Switzerland, but I'm very sure it's the tendency is not the big difference. Germany, if you go to the festival, you can clearly see, we can categorize several, categories. Okay, this is multimedia people of music integrate with the pop music and long tone music style.
Yeah.
Like texture calm. There's nothing happening, only very soft and sound. And there's some people like music these days also. Many music is happening like integrate with the pop, and they play the rap, and And I to be honest, I really respect variety. But my problem is why it's become style, and then some people also follow this, and
Okay, yeah. So your thing is like respecting variety, but also trying to look for your own personal voice.
To me is I don't know. It's really, but sometimes I talk about this and some German composers because we are really stick to the history. So this is the history that we are following, but sometimes also I don't get it. I mean, for example, in Germany, there's also many happening that, we are resisting we want to cut off from the history. But the thing is, this is also become another stream. We want to resist the, history.
Exactly.
And then this is also become groove. So to me, okay, what you want to speak about it? Another problem is if you don't follow this stream or fashion, to be honest, it's not easy to also connect with these major festivals in Germany, you know.
Right.
So this is another, I don't know. Yeah, this is
That is a very huge topic, like how to engage with festivals. But before, maybe we touch on that later. But before that, and since you said that you value quite a lot, like, you know, the own artistic voice. I mean, I had in different interviews that you already have, that in your work you have like two different stages, so to say. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I understood that there were two parts of your artistic development which are relatively clear. And I would like to ask you also to understand, you know, you as an artist. So which are these two stages, or the stages in which you have undergone, and if you can describe a bit both of them?
I think when I was in the US, the most key word is I talk about this too a lot, that actually I wasn't a composer. So I was just using the music to express myself. So to me, the most important thing was I want to express. So music was just tool. And then I just want to express. So in the US, I was really focusing on improvisation actually, and multimedia. And also in terms of music, I really focus on building up structure. So I became really obsessed with, you know, creating form, structures in my composition. But this approach, the problem was crashed with the improvisational energy that initially inspired me. So problem is I got so many idea about actually my idea is very improvisatory, but try to jam into the structure and then it sounds not good. So the problem was when I was there, like, to be honest, many of people who came to me who had already listened to my improvisation, and that they often say, "Hun, to be honest, your improvisation is much better." You know, like,
Okay.
yeah, because
Ouch.
yeah, it's really hurting. But there was like, because I got this idea, and then, you know, improvisation, their own reason to be like this. But the problem is try to describe on the score, and that they lose energy. So after that, when I moved to Germany, that's the second step. So I gave myself a mission. So to compose beyond personal expression. Okay, I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to just using the music as a tool to express. So because the problem was personal expression felt one-dimensional and limitation. You know, I start deconstructing my emotional sounds, stepping outside of myself, manipulate these elements objectively. There was huge difference in Germany. So one of my first steps was removing emotional words. So I used a lot of words actually on the score. I described, you know, what is the happening there.
Okay.
And then also I use like, okay, do like a pain or do like a sorrow, you know, from my score, but shifting towards sensations. So the reaction to sound that are less personal and more open to interpretation.
Okay.
So the problem is, for example, I put on the pain on the score, and then the problem is the performer, they try to interpret their own way to express the pain. When they see the pain, then they say, they exaggerate, okay? And how people will think about pain, and then they, you know, like, for example. The problem is if music become really cheesy and because so generalized. So I want to get away from this. So also when I go to Germany, I try to do like, you know, for example, I reducing a lot of resonance and impulse clang, you know, impulse clang music, because I was totally rely on this when I was in the US. But in Germany, I was more like I was more irregular patterns, and then, you know, silence with unpredictable tensions. Also, when I was in the US, I was really, most of my music was really loud, like like for 10 minutes. And but Germany, most change is, okay, loud is actually loud. You know, making the intensity using the loudness is the most cheesiest, most easiest way to make it. And then so I
Yeah. I kind of agree with that, although
Yeah,
I
so yeah,
fail to do that sometimes, but yes, I agree.
and then now like explore broader spectrum amplitude using temporal changes or silence to create strong effects. And then also when I was in the US, I didn't use pitch, but now I use a lot of pitches. So I will say I'm not scared of using the pitch anymore. So I mean, because I used to avoid using the pitch because pitch has a lot of historical references. But now I use them to like confuse and challenge the audience's perception and breaking hierarchies between pitch and noise. Yeah.
Okay.
So to me, I like noise was always a hierarchy and using the pitch, but these days I try to make a balance.
Yeah. I see where you're going. I mean, it is, yeah. I mean, but do you think so? This is a very personal thing for me, but when composing noise music, nevertheless, I mean, my perspective is pitch is always there in the sense that you can perceive pitches despite the spectrum is very saturated.
Uh-huh.
So how do you? I mean, the question would be, how did you build this noise before, and how the pitches are? How do you treat pitches nowadays? You said that you want to create some impression in the audience, but is there some harmonical thinking behind it? Is it, you know what I mean?
No, I didn't get it. Sorry.
Sorry. No, what I was gonna say. Okay, I rephrase myself. I mean, pitch, I think it is always present in the sense that we can hear different registers even within noise. We have
Yeah.
low noise, we have high noise. Before, did you think about that when composing with noise, about like all this different in register, or how to create tension and release within it
Using the pitch,
using noise first?
using the noise. I think that's most weakness of the noise. Of course, the noise can be very possible, but has a less possibility with the pitch. So the pitch is really, this is the thing, because pitch is, I think, has a lot of references. So some of hearing, and we can connect to a lot of historical other references. But on the other hand, actually pitch still has a lot of variety, especially if you combine with the noise. The biggest problem of noise is it has a certain limitation, and then also has a strong references, especially like if you use it and they say, oh, this is Rahman music, like
Yeah,
there are a lot
exactly.
and then if you're using this whole spectrum of this noise, using the gong, and Stockhausen used this. So actually noise has a more limitation. So that's another reason that I'm using the pitch too, because using the just noise to me is also, to me, because I'm improviser, so I know has a much more references to me, and this is two limitation. So combination of the pitch can be more, as you say, it's not only using the pitch or not only just using the noise. The combination of these and how to manipulate in the different context, it can be really different. And then as I will talk about this later too. So to me, it's not the sound object itself, it's not the big important. More important thing is how the audience perceive. So no matter even just one tone, pitch tone, can be totally different perception, depends on the context, So more to me, more important thing is inventing the new sound. It's not possible anymore because it had already happened already. So now more to me interesting thing is, okay, we got so many things now, and then how we all collected this, and then how we put in the context, and then how audience can feel the different perception of this.
Yes. Okay, got it. This is the state in which you are. This is your compositional approach at the moment.
Yes.
Good. That is, since we were talking about noise, there's something that you didn't mention before, and but that I heard around, and is that noise music was an important part of your background, right?
Yes. Yes. True. Yeah.
And so when did you get in contact with noise music, and how was it? Because I guess that was in the very beginning of your development, so probably it was in South Korea already. So how was this, this relationship with noise music?
So after my serving the army, and then I spent a lot of time with improvisers and also the dancers. And
Mhm.
then, at the time I work with some dancers, Ubuntu dancers, and then we have to play something, and maybe it's different than, as far as I know, different than my other contemporary music colleagues. Mostly what I understood about many European contemporary composer colleagues, they got into the music is more classical music background, that they get to the academia and that they see the other, and that they
Yeah.
like open like this. But I'm actually opposite. So to me, at the time, I worked with improvisers. So to me, first of all, I didn't have a concept, like I don't even know what is the pitch, definition of pitch and noise. They play some interesting sound and they're just dragging the object on the table and they're like, I like it, and then like,
Yeah.
okay, I want to, this unconventional noising making sounds. It was so just natural to me, to be honest. And then I still remember when I went to the bachelor, and then the professor played this major third, this thing.
Mhm.
To be honest, in my experience, that was the most shocking sound to me, like never in my, really, like it was, wow,
Yeah.
sounds good, but wow, it's shocking to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
so um so there's nothing like, distinguish pitch or noise. Just it was so natural to me.
Mhm.
And I think my lack of traditional musical background actually made me more like receptive to understanding music as noise rather than as a system of pitches.
Okay.
So this initial exposure laid the foundation for my later exploration of noise as a central element of, my musical identity.
Mhm.
So to me, like, sometimes when I meet some composers, they, oh, how can I use the pitch and noise, and like they try to experiment. But to me, it's like, to be honest, that's not that something. I'm the opposite. To me, to be honest, using the pitch is more experimental to me. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I understand, yeah. But you said that, composers usually follow this path of starting with pitch and with classical music and then broaden their perspective and go into with noise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this is something that we kind of already talked about. And it's like there is academic noise and there is like noise music.
Mm-hmm.
So I think also in an interview you mentioned that you didn't kind of understand the academic way of using noise. So
Mm-hmm.
which difference do you see between noise music as you started as a movement, as a, as improvised music, and also the way in which contemporary classical music are using noise?
Um, I don't know. It may be. I don't know who's gonna listen to this, but it maybe sounds some harsh to someone. But
Go ahead, please.
I don't know. I mean, many composers, to me, personal, in my opinion, many composers in the contemporary classical world know how to use noise within their composition. I believe it, but fail to grasp its origin or the deeper reason for incorporating it. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
I understand,
Yeah,
but that,
like,
yeah.
so to me, I don't know how other composers approach the how to create the music, but to me it's like there is imagination, and then I usually try to find the other musical contents to create this idea,
Mhm.
but sometimes it happens, not all contemporary composers, but it happens a lot to me. Many composers, they found some, copy, imitates, got some idea of sound contents, and they try to build up the idea, you know. I don't know, this approach can be successful, but it can be really risky. I mean, it doesn't, maybe it can fit in, you know, like, you know. So I feel like some Western composers, they became familiar with noise through figures like Lachman, you know, Bellone, you know.
Yeah.
I really strongly admire that, you know. But their use of noise within classical structure sometimes feels like adding the just noise topping, you know, like there's some main dish.
Like an effect,
yeah,
kind of, or
exactly. And
yeah.
noise, the thing is, like, if you see the earcom, like, how do they make the plug-in? And then this is the concept of the spectralism. This is exactly, they don't accept the, you know, noise itself. They try to understanding this, how to using the noise in the, you know, classical music way. You know, they try to build up overtone like a spectrum, you know.
Yeah.
And then try to, there are so many noise and try to make a very polished sound. I don't know. To me, okay, this is can be noise, but this is, it's kind of, so I feel like this reaction is can be losing the substantial quality of the actual noise itself, you know. And so this approach is risk losing the raw energy and this disruptive, you know, potential of noise. So furthermore, noise has a broader significance beyond sound itself. So it can represent structure. Structure can be the noise, also politics or sociology. But yet many contemporary composers, they reduce noise to a sonic element, just sonic element, you know, and missing its wider implication. Maybe that's the reason, because they only think about noise is as a sounding. So they try to, you know, think about this, and they put in the very well-defined structure, and they put in the noise. I don't know. To me, it loses the essential quality of the noise. To me, yeah, that's the problem. To me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, of course, your opinion, and it is very interesting, the different things that you have said. I have two questions. Well, maybe I have three. I'm gonna go for this one, which is maybe a bit complicated, and you can say, I don't know, but then what is noise? So what makes noise in the end? Why is not sound, you know?
What does that mean? What is not sound?
So what defines noise as itself? What is the fundamental thing that we are kind of missing as contemporary composers, in the sense that, yeah,
I think because main reason is contemporary composers, they always try to control the noise. I think that's the biggest problem.
Control. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because noise, you know, ironically, noise actually, no definition of noise is the irregular pattern of the sound sonic system, which is actually cannot be controlled. But they try to take this, only think about sound itself, and they try to put in the structure. It's very strong, you know, controlling formula, and then its sound itself also, of course, is still noise, but it's losing the energy, you know. Yeah. And then also losing the essential quality of the what is the noise. Okay, for example, do you know, like, for example, like, do you know Dolce & Gabbana? It's very,
of course I know them. Yes.
Yeah, very fancy. You know, these, you know, if you buy their jeans, like, you have to pay like $700, yes, you know, euro or more. And then, you know, they sell vintage jeans, for example. So they make really nice vintage, you know, try to make these, and they sell like 700, 800 euro. Okay, looks cool, really looks like old. And but my question is, okay, this is really vintage, you know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly. It looks like, but
it looks like vintage,
but it is not really vintage. That's true. That is true.
I think this is, unfortunately, this is also happening a lot in the contemporary music too. They're using the noise. Like, I love Bellone's music, and I really deeply admire how he explored each instrument and how developed the, you know, sounding, the noise. But if you just look at the structure, it's really classical formula, and they put in the noise, And then I also, when I listen to this, and then of course this is really amazing music, but if you just talk about this is the you really hear this noise sounds or quality of the sounding of the real raw original noise. And then I will say maybe not true. It's just really amazing, just contemporary music.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, totally. I get it. Good. The fact of control, that is something, okay, quite important. And I think you clarified very well. Do you think also there are some political aspects of noise music that are different from other kinds of music? Or for instance, in comparison with contemporary classical music, there's something political about it, about like, I am an improviser and I do noise music.
Yeah, it's actually can be really strongly connect to the also political message. And also still I believe that the situation, the status, or how contemporary composers treat the noise also is still, if you, it's not the main. Of course they, like some contemporary composers, they mainly use the noise, but if you see the what is close inside and what is happening, there's nothing, is still very outsider. They still didn't belong to the history, to be honest. So if you think about this, actually, that's why I still love noise, because this situation is exactly my situation in the contemporary music, actually.
Okay.
I'm in here, but actually I'm not there, and there's still I'm something others,
Right.
Yeah, so, but direct political message, I have a really skeptical about it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, when I compose dual signal piece, actually I talk about this with Adrián too. Oh, maybe how about I'm using some sound samples from North Korea president and then Trump, and then I try to mix and then put something like a samples at the end, and then people gonna be more like try to get the more confusion. And then Adrián said, oh, if you want you can do it, but toward the end I decided not to do it, because using the political content can make work feel overly one-dimensional and less transcendent. The problem of political contents are often tied to specific moment, which may make a piece feel relevantly temporary, but also risk it becoming outdated or losing the depth over time. So I'm more interested in creating work with lasting resonance that encourage audiences to think about beyond the immediate. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe I will using in the future, but if I using the political stuff, I don't want to using this as to give the message to audience, more like to make a confusion to the audience.
Yes, I totally understand. And how would you, I mean, this is gonna go into the next kind of block of questions regarding improvisation. This is kind of a bridge question, in which I would say, how do you use noise when in your music nowadays? Do you use it in a different way from contemporary classical composition? Do you embrace that random quality of it?
Random quality is sorry, I didn't get the question.
Sorry. So the how do you use noise that it is more linked to the essence of noise in opposition to how contemporary composers are using it?
Oh, so to me, so my approach is so first thing I do is I really want to break the hierarchy between composers and the performers. That's the first thing I do.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I met many composers, and that they are acting like a god. And okay, this is like composed. You just execute it. Just do what I want, exactly what I want. But this is, I don't know. To me, maybe I'm from music, improvisation background, so I don't believe it. I understand, but this is not what I want to do it. So because I believe that the performer should not merely execute my music, but actively realize it through their interpretation. So to me, actually, I don't know, you can also talk about this with Adrián. Actually, Adrián suggests many things through the rehearsals.
Mm-hmm.
I know many composers. They might offend it. How you dare, but I really loved it because he interacts, and then this is exactly what I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
So to support this dynamic, I use various types of notation in my scores. So offering different degrees of controlling between composers and performer. So if you see my score, first of all, there's a traditional notation. So which means I control everything within a fixed frame. Also, I use graphic notations with a strict timeline. So which means I define most of the content, but allow performers to interpret gestures and accentuation.
Mm-hmm.
Also, another is graphic notation with flexible timing. So which means performers have more freedom over timing, gestures, and accent within broader guideline. And also, there's also sections, improvisatory phrases. In this case, performers control almost everything guideline by my conceptual framework. And at the end, I always put free improv a little bit, because in this case, performer break out from my composition. I really love it. Break out compositional frame entirely, so that I put all these section, interactively, or put in all these together, so that sometimes I control more, sometimes performers to control more, and then we build into my frame, you follow my frame, and then suddenly they break out from this frame, and that this is how I get into the conceptual or the structure of the noise,
Mm-hmm.
And then also I can more realize this, earlier your question that how can you, try to imagine, the improvisatory things. This is another solution that I do these days.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, to me, this seems quite a lot influenced by, by your past as an improviser. And the fact of, breaking that traditional hierarchy between composer and player and trying to create something which both of them are contributing in a creative way, actually, because you are giving them freedom. I can very much associate this with your improvisation background. So I would say this is a way in which your background as an improviser influenced your composition, right?
Can be, but maybe not.
Is there any other ways in which improvisation influence your compositional practice?
Can be. Sorry, what was the question? Sorry.
The question is, how did improvisation influence your composition and vice versa?
I don't know. I feel like my improvisation and composition are quite distinct practices. Because when to be honest, when I improv, and I feel like I just play. This is like more, I approach the sound in the more sensational way, this is what I have, bam, like I don't think about, I will try to put more my philosophy, I want to define this. I don't think about this way. I want to just react, and then if I have a collaborators, and then I also react to their sound. So I'm doing more, to be honest, I'm just like having fun, this is what I.
Yeah.
But when I compose, it's different. I always, before start composing, I always write down program note first. So I always make a plan, and then what I'm gonna do. But however, while the two influence each other, they remain separate in many ways. Like, for example, to be honest, I got the many noise, interesting noise sounds, definitely I got from my friends, improvisation friends. So which means, it's different, but still I got all these sound sources. That said, my improvisation has recently become much more formalized, which might be a result of my compositional habit. I don't know. This is entire. I'm not sure that this is positive, but but my brain works like this.
I mean, I guess it can be positive in the sense that if your composition influence your improvisation, in the sense that you maybe plan ahead or structure a bit while playing,
Yeah.
you can better play with the audience listening on what they are doing. I mean, I love improvisation myself, and
Oh, really?
Sure. Not that I am an improviser or anything like that. I wouldn't say that. I enjoy
Okay.
improvising, but I don't know who wants to listen to that. In any case, I really value like improvisers who are very, very good. And but many times I faced this question that when I go to an improvisation concert, I see the player having a lot of fun, and then the audience saying like, okay, here we are. I listen to someone having fun, but it's not translated into my listening. And that's why I say maybe the fact that you are also composing, you think maybe more about like the dramaturgy quotation marks. So
Yeah.
the structure of the improvisations, maybe that, and I think for me that's also positive.
I mean, I actually kind of agree with you. To me, the biggest problem of improvisation is when I go to the improvisation concert, I always really enjoy first 5 minutes because they play this and wow, interesting sound and this, but there's no plan that they just play random everything. And if you listen to this over 5 minutes and then we just like, okay, easily we lose interest. That's another reason that when I compose, I always try to map out, not because of too much plan and try to control the sound, but rather, as you said, okay, how can I make the audience interest, keep interesting toward the end, Yes.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Okay, good. And then, so the thing also for me is like when you are improvising, when you are free from a score, players can give much more power into what they are doing, I think, or a different degree of energy into their performance. So is this a question that worries you when composing music? So the fact that players, maybe if they have a score, they are not putting that quality of the energy that you may get in when improvising. Is that something that's
To be honest, my teacher Roger Reynolds said about my music, and he said your question is the biggest my problem of my music, because my music is, if performers who really willing to do it like a dual signal, then it makes really like bam, really great quality. But if they really hate it, and I mean, to be honest, I work with many ensemble, and the problem is each time when I work with some ensemble, and at least one person offended. Like,
oh really? Okay.
Yeah, because for example, some of my my technique is so improvisatory, and then many performers who have a like a classical music background, they have no experience this, and they think of like, I'm not gonna mention the name of the ensemble, but they are very famous, and they are thinking they are really great, and then suddenly I brought really something that they never played before, the very young composer, and then they try and then it doesn't work, and then, they, what is this, So it happens a lot. Also, another problem is there are many of my techniques cannot be described. Of course I can describe, but they cannot fully get it,
Yeah.
So unfortunately, this is really still challenging for me. Many performers told me that playing my music require not just technical understanding, but also deeper understanding of me, because my music is too personal. So sometimes I often heard that, to be honest, to play your music, I have to understand you. So anyhow, so to address this, I have upload sound samples to Dropbox. So I put a lot of sound samples to better illustrate, extended techniques. And I also provide verbal explanations to help performers grasp the emotional and conceptual layer of my work. But like a dual signal, it works really well. They are willing to do it, and they always check it out, everything details. But this is my dilemma: is when I work with a big ensemble, like 10 people, and to be honest, they don't know me, they don't know much about me, and then that when you work with a big ensemble, they always have a limited times rehearsal, and then they barely check it, and then it in this case it really sometimes it doesn't work. So this is my dilemma, actually.
It's quite, I mean, with this kind of new ways of exploring music, it is quite difficult also to first to get, as you say, get players convinced that what they have to do, and moreover when it's something that it's not their usual practice, because despite they know a lot of standard techniques and whatever, there's still things that they are that they are not used to do. And the other thing is like having people who are really committed to your vision and to your idea, and to create this collaboration. Because it is true, sometimes, I mean, yes, we get very limited amount of times by ensembles. And how much can a composer just by some hours of of rehearsal? Doesn't make any sense. So I totally get it, that problematic. Yes. Then in a more general way, and also this is related to the how composition influence your improvisation, the fact of structuring. When composing, what is important for you when creating the structure of your pieces?
Very good question. Structure is really important for me, actually.
Okay.
When I talk about this, people say, "You had a structure in your piece?" Some people ask me. Yes, I have. But structure is really important. But I always make a structure to break out the structure.
Okay.
Also, I really resist linguistic approach to composition. One that relies on motive progression or generative cells, like Bedford, that develop a single idea through the piece. So this method, often tied to lyricism and expressionism, imposes fixed identity and roles, limiting the audience's perception towards, single thematic progression. So to me, I want to say something to audience, but I don't want to, is this saying shouldn't just meaning to them, or when I say this and they have to understand what they want in their own perceptional way. So my background, but at the same time, actually, I also hate very blocking structure, like some composers, actually some composers use a lot of like a blocking, like a sampling, repetition and moving to the another section. But at the same time, I also don't. I love this kind of music, but I also it's not fit into what I'm doing, because to me it's also another problem to fit into my work. So to address this, I have developed alternative approaches. So I compose with non-identifiable ideas and multiple roles for music and non-musical contents, deconstructing fixed identities to confuse and complexity for the audience. So to me, more important thing is when I compose, I always want to give questions to the audience. You talk about it, we talk about improvisation, or 5 minutes, and we lose interest. do you know what is the main reason? Because there's no questions. They are enjoying this, but after 5 minutes, people get this and what's going on, and there's no question. There's so many great, perfect music just there.
Right.
You know, so while I still map out clear structure, I often deconstruct and reorganize them, mimicking the stream of consciousness and unconsciousness also too.
Mm-hmm.
And also I also adapted perspectives from psychology to inform my compositional thinking, allowing for more nuanced expression of meaning and perception. So I use all this actually for my dual signal piece as well. So I composed at the beginning, my piece was really just like this. And then I said, okay, cut.
Okay.
And then I was drunken and like put this or this and experiment and how can make more confused to audience, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, but is audience confused? I mean, I listened to the piece, so I have my own answer. But
Yes.
is audience confused throughout the piece, or there are certain moments in which, of course, they can get something and follow it? And...
Exactly. That's exactly what. Yeah.
Okay. So you give them some hooks they can grab into, and then all of a sudden you break them, and that's how you are creating this motion of the structure. Okay.
That's why I have to well organize, because if you give so many questions, like question, audience stop listening. Okay.
Exactly. I was gonna say.
What is happening?
Yeah.
But if you questions and then hook up, as you said, and then people follow this, and then I suddenly put this then bam, you know, to the another direction, and then they thinking like, what is happening here? And then they lose, and then suddenly comes back to the another direction, and then suddenly so like in the playing too, like first time when they look at my score, Alejandro and Adrian's understanding was totally opposite. So for example, Alejandro say, "Hon, you have because I put so many extended techniques and then sound object, and if you see the score, it's very different section by section."
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
Alejandro said, "Why always changing?" I asked, "Wow, so many things happening." And then but Adrian say, "Yeah, if you look at like this, but if you really look closely, actually everything is the same. Okay, this kind of air sound, this kind of air sound. But if you look at the way of different, notation, but just as I said, I don't think about that much about the, written sonic object. I only think about perception. For example, like this hissing, but at the end, in the middle section, I developed like hissing like as a like this, Actually, as a perception of sounding to the audience is very similar, but notation is completely different, and also the way of playing, the physicality and everything. So on the score, maybe a performer think why it's changing, but if you listen to connect to these sections, and then people feel this is developed this like this,
Right.
I really like kind of approach this way. Yeah.
Okay, sure. And I mean, kind of the last question for this, and it's kind of a general question that I also ask myself. Maybe it is a very stupid question, to be honest. And I don't know if you have an answer, but I just throw it there. So, so how can we, as audience, differentiate between something that it is composed or something that it is improvised? Or if this is even something that you care about. I say this because sometimes you go, or I've been in many concerts in which the pieces, they're probably very fastidiously written. Everything is written down and very, very thoroughly done. But then the sound result is like, I could improvise this.
Yeah.
In the sense that I don't have any, so how do you think that we can, is it the responsibility of the audience to differentiate what is composed or what is improvised? It is the composer who can define that in his work. So yeah, how can we differentiate between this?
First of all, my question is, it doesn't have to be differentiate. That's my feeling. Music is just music. And then also when if you look at my score, some parts is really extremely well written, you know,
Mhm.
everything is really written, but I give the free to the, you know, some also extended techniques as well. So first thing I try to do is the improvisation. First of all, it doesn't should be the give the laziness to the performer, a composer, you know. Okay, I don't want to compose this part, so I want to just throw in, you know, like this.
Well, I've seen that. I
Yeah,
must.
I know some composers do like this. Yeah, but also at the same time, you know, like, you know, for example, like using the teeth, like, you know, very high pitch, you
Mhm.
know, teeth on reed,
Yep.
sounding. This is, I mean, I talk about this with so many performers. This is impossible to written. And then also, I don't know if you still remember, but almost at the end of the section, there is for example, there was the Alejandro has to play using the trumpet blowing, but using the pitch, but really high with the voice. And then I
Yes, 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 yes.
try to alternate it with this. Please play more sounds like you know, like the like odd sound.
Yeah.
And then I try to put how can you inhale and exhale. It was really exact notation. And then Alejandro said, we try. And then the energy rose. And then Alejandro said, Hon, in this case, I think you have to give more free to me.
Yep.
So if you put, because, you know, controlling the imbacho is really complicated to saxophonist play the, you know, trumpet blowing. So in this case, I have to choose the more free, you know. Of course, I put the note, you know, in this case, I put the exact notes, but actually in the timeline that where he has entered is the very free. So in this case, he get the more choose that where can we interact with, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, also personally, I enjoy creating a sense of mutual authority between composer and performer. So when I work with dual signal, you can ask Adrián. I never use that. This is my piece, and can you, you know, I said our piece, you know. So through this process, we arrived at a realization that was true of both of us. So balancing my compositional framework with the interpretation freedom, you know. So this is our mutual, you know.
Creation. Yeah.
And then I really reject hierarchy in music. I don't want performer to simply execute my vision. Instead, I want them to create their own world within the framework I provide. And this collaborative approach, you know, ensures that each performance is unique and meaningful realization of the work. So one thing I like about this approach is, okay, dual signal play this, and then maybe next time some other performer play this, it sounds completely different. So it's not, you know, I'd like this kind of something, you know, okay, this is the signature of the dual signal sounds, but other maybe play in their own way. I like more this way. Yeah.
Okay. That is very, very, very interesting. Okay, changing topic now. You have already like gave us a very good frame of your artistic practice. And the reasons behind it is it was very interesting. Then there's one part that it doesn't have anything to do with dual signal so far, but it's some part of your artistic practice that you do, and it is multimedia.
Yeah.
So my question is, why using multimedia in your pieces?
Do you know Namjoon Park? Namjoon Park?
No.
He's Korean video artist.
No, I don't know him. No.
Okay, so he's the founder of the video art. So he is the first person that used video to the art. And his museum is near to me. And then he also actually studied the music earlier, and he switched to the video art. So many Korean artists really proud that, you know, Koreans create some new art, you know.
Right.
And so I again, the museum is just related in my town, you know. So I often go there, and then I saw his, he was the member of the Fluxus.
Aha, yep.
Yeah, so he played really weird music and sound, noise. If you see the one of his performance was he's cutting the piano using the chainsaw. So I grew up with these kind of things, and then also video art. So to me, art doesn't sound and noise and this visualization is not like it always linked together,
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. So my earlier works were almost entirely multimedia pieces, mostly,
Mm-hmm.
as I never saw sound and visual as separate entities, So to me, my interest in multimedia is exploring psychological interactivity. So to me, again, psychological interactive process between the performer, composers, performer, audience, it is so important for me. So I aim to represent outer actions, inner actions, and interactive between emotion and memory. For example, our outer action is we are doing interview,
Yeah.
Yeah, but inner action is I'm thinking about a lot now, like, okay, I talk about this negative contemporary composers. I'm worried about, some people might offend it. And somehow I'm thinking about, okay, what is my lunch? And I also thinking about the memory about the when we work together in the dual signal. So outer action is really clear that we are doing, but inner action, emotional memory is interactive. Actually, something is happening in our head. And I really like showing this process to the present, to the audience, actually. So, for example, each component of my multimedia setup is carefully assigned to realize the vision. So, for example, I have a cello piece, like it's a really old piece, like 10 years ago I composed. And this piece composed for laser, theater, pre-recorded video, live video processing, and laser, and like really super complicated piece.
Okay.
And then each component of the sonic or multimedia devices has a function. For example, pre-recorded video is represent the memories, such as trauma. These pieces talk about trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And the live video processing symbolizes the current state of his life, so outer action. And the lighting and laser represent the ongoing internal process of dealing with trauma, so inner action. And the color and specialization of sound is reflect emotional shifts between these outer and inner dynamics. So multimedia allows me to construct a complex interactive psychological narrative that transcended sound alone. So I want to show all this, and then sometimes I also do using the sound, but using the visual aspect is more effective and powerful to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, and there's a lot of relationship between you and psychology, as far as I see. You are mentioning that quite a lot, like you said,
Yes.
psychological terms, and now this translation. Okay, I would have never thought that was the reason why. So that's why
Yeah.
I love this answer. Yes, but also like multimedia has been, and it is kind of a trend in contemporary.
Yes. Yeah.
So quite a lot from no, we're in 2025, so maybe 14 years ago it started. But anyway, like it has been for quite some time already, but it is something very trendy. So
Yes.
how do you see this? How do you see the development of this trend so far? Do you like it? You don't like it? How do you see their approach to multimedia, etc.?
Yes. If you might ask me, my last multimedia piece was the 2015. No, 2015 actually. Yes. But I composed the piece for 4 years, I think 5 years, 4 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I stopped composing. And actually I stopped composing multimedia since I came to Germany. If you ask me why, That's the reason. It's become trend.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
it's to be honest, when I first using, if you see maybe YouTube, I also have one of the multimedia piece. Let's talk about also multiple personality disorder. I composed that piece 2012. So even when I composed that cello piece, to be honest, at the time, many composers not into multimedia actually. But I don't know, somehow it became really popular.
Yeah, it became from there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so the use of multimedia in contemporary music reminds me actually some of same issues that I see in how composers approach noise around, theater too. I don't know, I feel like many composers adopt multimedia, to be honest, without understanding its root or philosophy, often imitating others without deep exploration. I feel like it. So, so basically, I want to say is they get all these multimedia things. I think mostly they got the idea from other composers or the other contemporary composers. So right. Even though each composer's multimedia is very independent, but at the same time, if you see the how to flow or formula, it's actually very similar. If you see, okay, this is, So I don't know, maybe what might feel new in contemporary music is often actually borrowed from visual art or multimedia,
Right.
Like I have, that I told you I have a many visual artists, and then I show I don't know want to mention about the name, but I show the multimedia how other contemporary composers use this, and then most of my friends said, "Oh, it composed 30 years ago? No. This is happening now." And that they say, but we did it. Visual artists did 20 or 30 years ago, this similar concept,
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, this is I don't know. I mean, while it's true that multimedia has expanded the artistic toolbox for composers, but I don't see substantial development in its application, to be honest. I don't know, composers to move beyond simply adapting ideas by visual artists and find their own innovative approaches. So to me, this raises important questions to me. So should we, okay, so what is happening in multimedia? So composers using, okay, we are thinking actually if we see the contemporary scene, this is new. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, sure.
So should we accept this recycling as the foundation of new genre in contemporary music? I don't know. I mean, this is all happening in the contemporary music scene. Like they using this multimedia, like for example, conceptual music. Conceptual art happening in the 20 years ago in visual art scene. And then that conceptual art, most important thing is idea. What kind of brought the idea in the front there, And then the problem thing is some of my friends who making the conceptual music, so their idea is already happening 20, 30 years ago in visual art. Then my question is, okay, especially conceptual music is so important thing is idea, but they had already used in the visual art scene, that now they're using here, and this is really new, and then we have to accept this as a new genre, This is my question. And then also, has contemporary music kind of lost its direction, I think, by embracing elements from external discipline? For example, when I played, like 20 years ago, when I work with a lot of improvisers who play really long tone sound, really quiet, and then like very meditative, that they played like 1 hour. And then suddenly, like now is many composers playing this long tone texture music, Then I'm thinking, okay, this is happening in experimental music 20 years ago. And like I mentioned, like many contemporary composers also using adapted, this, like rock and roll rhythm. This is also headed like in Berlin, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, experimental composers use this. And then, okay, now you guys using, and then to be honest, if you ask me, okay, do you want to listen to this or do you want to listen to the now,
The
this?
proper thing.
Yeah, like for example, like one of very famous composers say, oh, classical music at the time, 200 years ago, that's also pop, pop music. So now we are making pop music is no problem. The thing is, maybe, yeah, that's true. That's really true. But at the same time, the function, the role of the contemporary music is changed because now, at the time, pop music had already replaced the position of the old classical music. For example, if you want to listen to the pop music in the contemporary music scene, or you just want to listen to the contemporary music, the pop music in the club. I want to listen to the pop music in the club more.
Yeah.
And I don't know. So the biggest problem of contemporary music scene I see is that they accepted so many other things from outside to brought here. I really appreciate it, really, because it gives impulse, to the, give the more other visions. The thing is, okay, we can make better than them. We are some, unfortunately, not all of them. Some composers doing really good job, but some others just recycling, and then then what is the meaning here? We just recycling others, and then what is the function? What we do,
Yeah, and I have my own thoughts about that, but then I was gonna ask that question: what is our function?
Exactly. I mean, that's my question too. I'm struggling with this.
Do you have any answer for that, or is this something that you are just wondering and trying to find the answer?
Maybe I'm ongoing. I don't know. I mean, because for example, like I work with my dancer friends and theater people, and then one day I went to some theatrical contemporary music concert, and then they say, "Oh, yeah, it was good, but their actually acting was a little bit awkward." They told me after concert, and then I said, "Yeah, because they are not actually actors; they are players." And then they asked me, "Then why they act?" So the thing is, if they do multiple things, and then the problem is they sometimes lose their own. They, of course, to be honest, if we do act, we cannot be act as much as actors. Theater, we can make a multimedia. Unfortunately, we cannot as much as visual artists. And there are so many improvisatory and experimental music, energy, composers, they try to written, you cannot be catch up with this. So this is my question. I used to believe that contemporary music had the responsibility to discover new possibility and visions in sound and influencing subcultures and other art forms. But however, over the past 25 years, I think it has weakened. So while many composers, they continue to push boundaries, much of contemporary music has become interchangeable with other genres. But the main problem is that I think tendency to reject history entirely rather than engaging with it critically, I think. This connection from tradition has led contemporary music sometimes without a clear purpose. Now it's just everything is happening, but the problem is I don't know what they don't know why we are doing this, because the answer is very simple, because they never think about what I got these sounds, so they don't know what was the root, so they don't know, okay, I got just this and then I'm just using this, I mean, that's why they still have some of composers, they still has a unclear purpose to using all this,
Yeah.
Or maybe they just try to hide, to be honest. I mean,
try to hide their, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to mention about this composer, but very famous French composer, and I met him, and he talked about, he said, oh, he's really into just sound, and then he was like kind of criticized multimedia music, and he said, to be honest, okay, what is happening? I know, but he said, but just sometimes when I see the multimedia music, I just close the eyes and just try to listen to it. And then he was very critical. He said to me, I never heard interesting sound so far with the multimedia. So using the multimedia cannot be excuse to, like.
I mean, that is true. Honestly, that sounds very familiar to me. Maybe I know who that is. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe that is true. I mean, but the thing is, I mean, what you're talking here is in general, like using multimedia to hide something, or the fact of how composers use certain materials coming from other genres, from pop, from jazz, from whatever. I think that what I see is that you are saying that everyone is remaining on the surface of that. So they basically take it, they don't understand it fully, and they do something with it. And then, of course, it's very superficial what we get because we didn't understand the root of it. I mean, I have that same criticism with a lot of music using, pop or jazz, or they don't really get what's that about. Despite you use the harmonies or you put I got very tired of seeing drum sets into, in contemporary music concerts. It seems like you're putting that there in order to be cool, but you don't understand how do you play a drum set and the quality of sound and what is groove. Anyway, I don't want to get into that because then we would like be debating, but but I think I understand what you mean on the question of
But one thing I
go ahead.
want to add is, but it doesn't mean that I agree with the French composer actually.
Sure.
One thing he was wrong is when I also do this, but when I compose the multimedia, but he shouldn't be actually close his eyes because because multimedia is the another function of the music. Of course, he cannot get it because you delete one of the function. Of course, he cannot get it.
A very important one.
Yes,
I totally agree with you. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but I disagree with him. But I disagree with him. But I understand why he said like this behind.
Yeah,
that's the point. And also, it doesn't mean all the contemporary like composer who using the multimedia is bad. I think some of composers really good at it actually too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yes. I mean, this is raising the question and raising the issue. Is not kind of criticizing in general because of course there's people doing fantastic work around, but this is like we're pondering on, or you are pondering about these questions, which are very, very valid. Okay, so where are we as composers then? Okay, so what do you think? Yeah, I think we discussed this already. So what do you think is the role of contemporary music? Why is it important that we do this? I mean, despite we don't know where we are going, maybe why is it important that we do that instead of, I don't know, I just go to pop music and maybe I'm more honest,
I don't know. And to be honest, this question is too complicated to me. I mean, but one thing I don't know. I don't know. This is the really only solely solution. But to me, do you know Matsubo, the noise artist, the Japanese noise artist?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So he makes crazy noise, like extreme noise. And I went to his concert in Berlin, and over 200 people came. Really, 200. And I was thinking, these 200 people are sitting, of course, standing and listening this crazy noise over 1 hour. I was thinking, so after concert, I said to my friend, hey, I'm actually very jealous that, like, to be honest, contemporary music is still better, nicer than this, the brutal noise. But why 200 people try to find and come to this extreme noise? But why not contemporary music? And then, but he's not composer. But he said to me, Hun, because contemporary music, unfortunately, many music doesn't speak anything to the audience. There's no physicality, what he said. Actually, his answer was really striking to me. We talk about, okay, I'm a composer. As a composer, I try to set all these philosophical things, everything. But unfortunately, these things it really doesn't speak to anything to the audience. That's the reason, I think. It's too disconnected, you know. So we are doing, so for example, I think many composers, unfortunately, I also do sometimes, but usually sometimes we compose for ourselves. Nothing about, of course, it doesn't mean that we have to compromise with audience, but at
Sure.
least we need to give some physicality to the feeling something to the audience. And, you know, to be honest, when I play my noise improvisation, to be honest, I get more audience, to be honest. And the people more come to me and that, wow, yes, you know, because it doesn't, you know, if you listen to my improv, much more violent, much more like, but I was thinking a lot when I had a contemporary music, I didn't get that much of the reaction from the audience. But why people more into my improvisation? Just the only reason. Difference is there's more physicality, like, you know, give something to them, you know, anything about it, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually very true and very important.
Yeah.
That fact that, yeah, contemporary music sometimes sounds very, I mean, it's also another way of listening to music than noise. Like, I think it's a very complex issue. I don't want to get into that because this would extend for a very long time.
Yes.
So I just leave it there.
Okay. We can talk maybe next time with the vodka.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not into vodka, more whiskey, but yes, vodka and whiskey, that's fine.
I love whiskey too.
Okay, so no, but
Yeah.
totally, because this would be extremely long, and you gave already kind of a vision of this. Last question regarding this is like, because you mentioned it in another interview, is like composer versus sound artist.
Yeah.
So what is the difference for you, and why did you state that sound artist could be the future?
I don't say it's gonna be future. That's my hope. It should be in the future.
Well, sure. Yeah.
So I think the key distinction is involving audience participation or not. So traditional composition places the audience in a passive role. You know, they are just listener. You know, okay, they play the music and, you know, they just receiver of sound. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But sound art, on the other hand, actively involves the audience in creating their own sonic environment and making them participate in artistic experience. So they are also another part of the music, you know, in the process. And also another difference is the reliance on score. I think composition is still stick to the, I really don't get this idea, but it's really important for composers to, I must write down on the score, you know. So written notation which conveys the creator's intentions, I think is really important. But sound art, on the other hand, doesn't require a score. So allowing for larger flexibility and immediacy. So I believe that, I hope so. In the future, I believe this distinction will dissolve. You know, contemporary music, installation art, sound art, experimental music, and improvisation music. You know, in the future, I believe that these all distinction is unified together as a sound art. You know, much like painting, performance art, and multimedia art have combined into the visual art. So, you know, art now become all visual art, and there are, you know, some specific, you know, different style. I hope become like this. You know, this integration, I think, represent not only a practice evolution, but also philosophical shift, one that reflects the diverse and then, you know, nature of sound in contemporary music culture. You know, to me, it's contemporary music, and the term of the composition has a too strong hierarchy to me, to be honest. So I want to be deconstruct over the imagination of this composition and then something into the more broad concept, you know.
Yeah. I totally see it. Well, again, Okay. Yeah. Okay. We have to have yes. We have to have a tea or a beer together and discuss this. I have some things to say to that. But I totally see that, and I totally see where you want to see that merge between both things. Then maybe they become something different in the end. So, like the fact that we are very attached to scores is it's part of the how it has evolved, because I mean, I guess okay, you know what, I'm not gonna get into there because I was going to get into that. No. Anyway, we're gonna change topic.
But one thing I will tell you, you say, okay,
Yeah.
this is the tradition and come through the easy to convey the information to the audience performers. That's true. But on the other hand, if you see the history of the Western music, many performers, they did the vocalization and also they did the, improvisation. They did it. But at some point,
Sure. Yeah.
too much segregate and they too much rely on this score, and then they lose their potential inside. So you are right, but also I want to that's why I kind of really support the multidisciplinary, because this is what was actually doing performance. They do act, vocalization, playing, push the boundary.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but we are gonna change topic.
Sorry that I brought so many questions to you.
Sure, and it's super interesting. But I mean, yeah, this. I mean, we could discuss this for many hours. So, no, another question that I wanted to discuss with you is decolonization,
Yes.
because I think it's one important aspect in your practice. And I mean, of course, in your bio, you state that you challenge the misconceptions surrounding Asian culture as a sonic framework within contemporary music. Which are these misconceptions?
So, in my experience, so there are deeply ingrained stereotypes about Asian composers in different cultural contexts, particularly in the US, especially. I studied there, and I faced a lot of this misconception about Asian composers, and also in Europe. So in the US, Asian composers are often expected to conform to an Orientalist framework, employing, Asian melodies or Asian instrument, mysterious, many Asian composers using their own language or mysterious poetic titles that evoke exoticism. You will not get it what I'm talking, but it sounds fancy, right? This is yeah, and the traditional conceptualization of beauty tied to the Asian culture as well. And these stereotypes are rooted in American expectation of otherness and what they perceive as authentically Asian. Okay, you are Asian. So I often hear, like when I was in San Diego, one of my teacher asked me, okay, what is the maybe you have to find your own root. So I asked him, what is my root? Oh, there's nothing about your own culture. And I said, I know this is my own culture.
Exactly.
But he said, you are from Korea. And yeah, but you know what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah. I understand.
And also, like one of the examples is like, I try to get the commission, and this person like try to say, oh, you using this Asian melody and using the more like it should be represent. I said, okay, I talk about this noise and blah blah. And he said, no, this is not Asian. So like, I don't know what you think about Asia, So this is why. So while some composers may embrace this element, many do so because in the US, it's true, and that they feel it is the only way to gain the recognition in a predominantly Western framework, especially in the US, and that this perceptuation of Orientalist ideals is both reductive and, in my view, a subtle form of racism, to be honest.
Yeah, totally.
So personally, I have found this expectation is, to be honest, is boring. Like Toru Takemitsu, Lee Sang-yoon, all these composers had already did like 50 or 70 years ago. They did amazing job. There's nothing we can interact with. The thing is, Western is their job was amazing, but at the same time, it's too formalized. Asian composers way is only do this. That's not true. And we have many different aspects. So like for example, I don't know, it's if you go and there also there are stereotypical expectation. I one day I watched some Korean comedian in the US, and he said, oh, why you choose this, and then why you choose this comedy works. And then he said, oh, because as a Asian male actors, comedian has a more value, more opportunity to get big cast, like if you be really serious, no, white man must do this usually. Asian men mostly, like sport.
Yeah, that is,
what I'm saying? So it's happening also a lot. But, and then unfortunately, this also kind of give the something stereotype of the Asian man. If you go to America, I forgot the name of this guy. He's always wearing the Jong Kim, the president of the North Korea, and he's acting this, and people are laughing. This is also just give the more, this works for this stereotype of the, So in Europe, on the other hand, it's much less as a stereotype of Asian composers. But it doesn't mean it's better. It just doesn't exist. I think to me, Asian composers is almost like here is invisible. If I don't know in Switzerland, but in Germany, if you go to the school academia, there are so many composers, Asian composers. But unfortunately, they often return to their own home countries, unable to establish themselves in the European contemporary music scene. And then many European people believe that contemporary music belongs to the Western historical tradition. Last time I was talking to one of my professors, and I asked him, what is the contemporary music? And then he said, belong to the history. So I think many Europeans thinking contemporary music is inside of the frame of the history. So they cannot get out. I really understand why, because they, many contemporary, performers, they using the traditional Western, then, but still, and then my question is, okay, then these others like Asians and, Africans, we don't have these traditions. And then how can we part of this, if we don't have this, So this mindset dismisses the idea that Asian composers can meaningfully contribute to contemporary music unless they mimic Western traditions. I think this creates dual problem. So Asian composers, I know many Asian composers, they feel pressure to replicate European compositional style to gain acceptance. Okay, I want to be, not make it, but okay, this is okay, please, So they are playing some role in the frame of this, Western say thinking this is Noi music, And their works also, another thing is their works are rarely recognized as part of contemporary music if they draw on unique non-Western perspectives. So it's Asian, to me, as an Asian composer, this is really, to me, like struggling,
Yeah, no, totally. And absolutely. And you have gave us a very, very good picture about it. One question that it may be a bit difficult now, but it gets into this. It came to my mind when you said that you, regarding this commission, that the commissioner was saying, but there is nothing Asian about that, and or South Korea, or your culture, and he was like, but noise is my culture, no?
Yeah.
So, how do you see is the fact that maybe some European composers get influenced by musics from other kind of cultures, such as it could be Japanese culture, it could be African
Yes.
culture. So do you think, I mean, this is maybe a very big topic, but where is the limit between, what they call cultural appropriation and the fact of being influenced by that because you appreciate that? What is your position regarding this? Or
This is also really
it's very
complicated.
big. I know.
Yeah, it's really complicated topic, but it depends on composer, I think. Some composers stop doing this if you they really fully understand. Like for example, John Cage, he really talk about the silence, and if you see his like writing and like lecture, he really got it. It doesn't matter he got these ideas from the Japanese meditation. Really, he fully understand. So in this case, I really appreciate it. Doesn't matter regarding. I think race is really doesn't matter. And then where is he got this Africa or Japan or whatever? And then, of course, they can get everything from it. They can create their own way too. But some composers, I don't. Funny thing is, we talk about many issues now, right? But main thing is, reason is just one thing. They are always take it in a superficial way. You know what I mean? They don't know what they're doing. They really don't understand what is the substation quality of this, what it is.
Yep.
If they know it, no problem. But sometimes they don't get it, and then it become really awkward. It's yeah.
Yes, I totally see it. So how can we decolonize music, or what does decolonization could mean in music?
I don't know. I mean, because there are not many, but some composers talk about decolonization. But one thing I really want to emphasize is, to me, decolonization doesn't any relate to race. Maybe it can be, but about my music, no, I don't think so. I don't know. It's a part of it, but I'm not that talking about that much color, like skin color,
Exactly.
race. To me, decolonization is more just simply because I never think about like I'm composer. I'm just composer. I'm not male. I'm not female. I'm not homosexual. I'm not white. I'm not Asian. I don't know. I'm the nationality. It doesn't matter. It just really, to me, it's like I don't have any this. I don't know. To me, it just decolonization in music involves deconstructing these stereotypes and power dynamic in order to create space where diverse perspectives are genuinely embraced. So I want to just push the boundary. Like, for example, like I told you that one of my teachers said, okay, the music, contemporary music is the definition of the Western music history. Then okay, yeah, right. But how about we push the boundary,
Sure.
Doesn't matter Western, whatever. Just push the boundary. And how can we make this is also can be the contemporary music, So as an Asian composer, I constantly reflect on how can I ensure my musical philosophy and artistic voice come from my own thoughts and feeling rather than an imposed framework? Second question is, if Asian artists create work outside of the Western musical paradigm, can this work be recognized as a contemporary music within the European tradition? This is really happening a lot. I know many experimental friends, they compose really amazing music and really sounds really interesting. The thing is, he doesn't written. There's nothing written score. So he never get into the contemporary music scene, just only reason there's nothing on the score. And the people ask, well, why there's no score? And then it's not the contemporary music. I mean, like kind of things, And then another question is, how can I contribute to push the boundaries of contemporary music in Europe so that European contemporary music field embrace Asian or African or Latino composers' music as a part of contemporary music and not as a third world music. You know, if you go to the America, I still remember one of composers teaching the class is the world third music. Okay, what is the world third music? So still, which means they are still thinking that something music is happening outside the Western this society is third. It's not the you cannot be the So for me, decolonization means challenging the implicit hierarchy that define contemporary music as a primary Western construct. Involves creating a dialogue where Asian composers are not just participate, but contributors to the redefinition of what contemporary music can be. So to me, I really emphasize this. Like, you know, most of my friends who are Asians, unfortunately, they return to their home country. Everyone. And then everybody asking me, why you stay there? Why you are struggling with this? Then I always say this, my job, my mission is only one thing now, at this moment. What? At least I want to push the boundary and get the many other world third musicians or composers be part of this contemporary music, you know? Yes.
Yeah, that's no, totally. I mean, it is really inspiring, a very fascinating perspective what you're giving here. So yeah, like totally. Sure. Okay, before finishing, I would like to talk a bit about the piece that you composed for Duo Signal. I just have very few questions about it. The piece is called The Uncanny Valley. The Uncanny Valley plus noisy superheroine and kleptophilia. So the first thing is, which is interesting to me because you do it, you have done it in several works. You have works in which you know, it can be read in different ways because you parenthesize parts of the words, etc. They give like a very polyvalent aspect to it. So it can be read in very different ways. So so the first thing would be how did you choose this title and why titling in this way?
So for me, the most important aspect of choosing the title is that raising questions. We talk about a lot of this, you know. So there's nothing, you know, many audience doesn't read the program note. Okay, then how can I interact with the audience first? That's the title to me. And then I really always offer multiple interpretation. Again, I don't never want to show them direct message from what I'm written. I want to more open. And then depends on who you are, what is your background, you can perceive whatever you want. So the title should evoke curiosity and provoke the listeners to, you know, explore different meanings and the connection within the piece. So my music is the most important thing is the concept is ambiguity. It's central to my work. So in the case like Duo Signal piece, the music itself contains many contents that do have a fixed identity. Instead, the contents perform different roles and depending on their context and relationship to each other. So they might appear the same at different moments, but their meaning shifts depending on the interaction between the musical element. So for example, you know, at the end of my title, I use that kleptophobia because serve as an example of the ambiguity. So for example, derived from the French term for a form of theft, it relates to the idea that both rich and poor encourage in similar actions, but yet the perception of those actions shifted depending on social status. Just as in the piece, where musical element reappear with altered meaning, the same actions or materials can take on new roles based on the relationship, where in music or society. So ultimately, I don't want my music to have a fixed interpretation. So I aim for fluidity and transformation, encouraging the audience to explore the relationship within the sounds rather than focusing on individual musical element. So I think the context is everything. So to me, so again, I mentioned, I told you, musical element itself is, to me, it's not really not important, because as a composer, I'm not interested in what is the outcome of the what is written. So for me, more important thing is what audience, what do you perceive? What is your imagination? You know. So if you even so, my very much my interesting is okay, if there are some similar musical contents, but I want them is constant. You know, if you look at my score is constantly repeat on the in the section by section, but I hope that I want the audience perceive in a different way. So, for example, if there are similar object, but section by section, it should be different meaning. You know, or there are totally different contents, but maybe section by section, it become more similar roles and perception. So the sound or action is not important. Like a claustrophobia, they do the same action, but it depends on the who did. Its meaning is changing. So you know, the biggest problem, like if you're using the cell or motive progression, they too much make a contour, and if you deconstruct the consist of the musical element, you know, like pitch or range or rhythm, whatever, it's too fixed. And then if you look at them to deliver it, this entire whole thematic progression, their role is always same. But to me, I also use this, but I deconstruct all this, and then suddenly I put this, but has a different role, you know. That's my function. And then audience can feel, even though everything is very similar, but actually it's so different. Or, oh, something is totally different, but actually at some point is similar, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so I see that kind of, a lot of ambivalence in your music and different, ways of seeing it. That is super interesting. But what is the concept of that interest you when creating this piece? So why did you decide to do it about the Uncanny Valley?
First of all, actually, Uncanny Valley must be with the multimedia. I don't know, you heard about this with the dual signal, but actually my first, I was suggesting them, okay, I want to compose this piece first. And in the future, I don't know when it's gonna happen. I want to compose this with the multimedia as well. So if I compose with the multimedia, and then actually you feel more clear that what is the intention of the behind, but as a sounding is a little bit less actually.
Okay.
But so it's the same. To me, the concept of Uncanny Valley offers fascinating lens through which explore the relationship. As I talk about the same thing, but to me, it's the more important thing was the relationship between acoustic sound and electronic manipulation. So in acoustics, Uncanny Valley refers to the emotional response triggered when a humanoid object closely resembles, but doesn't perfectly replicate, human being. So this imperfect resemblance create a feeling of weirdness, So everything is, what I want to do is everything is talk about the psychological process. So people usually get fond of the what is similar things, like they can attach to it, and then they found something similarity, and that they found they really like it, but at some point, if there's something awkward within this, this, and then they totally react, opposite way. So for me, this concept resonate strongly when thinking about the relationship between acoustic and electronic music. So I apply the Uncanny Valley theory in several ways. For example, acoustic versus imitation. So there's a gap between the live physical performance and the imitation or distortion of that sound through the electronics. So this disparity creates an odd sense of familiarity, but also entrenchment, similar to their weird feeling one gets when encounter a nearly human object.
Yeah.
Also physicality and gesture. So the performer's gesture configuration contrasts with the unlimited abstract gestures afforded by electronics. So I use a lot of samples about what they played, but they play in the electronic music really fast, and like shifting the the pitch shifting or phase shifting, and it's really become awkward. So sound source is the same, but the physicality can be awkward with the unlimited electronic manipulation. People feel awkward, and then also familiar and disconnected. As I mentioned, there's the very familiar things, and that my music is, as you said, like it's going somewhere and then suddenly changing, and this changing is really awkward actually if you look at the set as a structure. And then I really intentionally I did it. So the relationship between familiar sonic gestures, something the audience maybe recognize, and oddly disconnected with electronic processing. For example, like in the middle section at the end, I put some gaming sound. It was actually very serious, and then suddenly, I don't know, you still remember. And then actually many people talk about why you why gaming sound, why this like pop music.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, and then suddenly, and then change to another direction. So I like try to give something confusion and then the weirdness to the audience, And if I using the more multimedia, I can make more trick, and I can more give the more, weirdness to the audience. And the last thing is emotion versus sensation. So, it's really complicated. Even I also did when I discussed with the dual signal. I mean, first of all, I told you my piece, there's no emotional words. So actually the Alejandro was a little bit confused about how to play. And then actually I talk about my story and he got it right away,
Right.
So, but to me, I still ask him, it shouldn't be something open, it doesn't should be really do this what I exactly want. So I try to more open because there's this music, I don't know, there's some part is very emotional, oh, what is the, but there are some parts of their same musical material, it became just more sensational, less personal, So finally, there is an emotional component of music which is connected to the listener subjective experience versus the sensory mechanical sensation created by the electronic sounds. So this shift challenged the audience's expectations of emotional depth, replacing it with something more clinical and artificial, contributing to the uncomfortable feeling of the uncanniness.
Yeah.
So these concepts come together to create a experience where the audience is constantly questioning what is the familiar sounds, and then what is emotional connect, and then suddenly this emotional connect is suddenly losing, to the music. These shifting each other and reflecting to the unsettling feelings that's the uncanny valley theory describes that I try to do for this piece. So if I don't know, so after a piece I talk, I always ask actually performers that audience that, oh, sometimes people say, like, I remember I think one audience said to me, oh, your music is very emotional. Then I said, really? Okay, what did you have? What is your feeling of emotion? And she said, I don't know. Then I said, that's what I wanted. You shouldn't know it, because this is shifting emotional, sensational. You cannot grasp it, but you got it something.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And this work was part of our residency that Duo Signal organized. So how was the process of the creation of this work with them?
About with the dual signal, really, I'm really not saying because probably Adrián and Alejandro is gonna be listen to this. I'm not saying this because they are listening this. I really appreciate it. I really say I really learn many things from them. Really a lot of things. And then I really enjoy it. And then I'm really I said to one of my friends yesterday, it was really lucky to work with them. I think I really stepped up as a composer. I also learned a lot of things, instrument, and also we invented many extended technique together too. So our process was we had a workshop, and then we try something, and it was really inspiring. And then I brought some stupid idea. Like I still remember Adrián looked at me like, what? You know? and then we are like, okay, something like first my question was just play anything, something noise. And then he was like, okay, you know. And then we are,
trying to find a way. Yeah.
Yes, trying to find a way. And after that, I got so many ideas, and then we recorded. And then I listened to like 10 times, okay, what was it? And, and then, okay, how can I, construct all this together? And then we had 4 rehearsals. I think I visited 4 times. One time was the rehearsal, workshop. Second time was the recording. Third time was the rehearsals. And especially at the end of, the concert, they spent a whole week almost.
Yeah.
And like they practice my piece like 4 to 5 hours per day.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. But it was incredible. And of course, it's almost 30 minutes piece. It's a really long piece actually. Yeah. So they have to spend more, like as much as like practicing 2 pieces. And I really want to say one more time, thank you, Adrián and Alejandro. You guys are awesome.
They will see this.
You were awesome. Yes. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, amazing.
Good. And were you able to explore new sounds with them? And is it that exploration important for you? Explore new instrumental sounds, explore new possibilities, pushing the boundaries, as you said that in other aspects you try to do it. So what is classical music? So push the boundaries. So
yes, yeah. I mean, it depends on who I work, but this time it was really inspiring. Especially, to be honest, I also said this to Adrián. To be honest, I don't know much about trombone. And then also, so it was the time to learn trombone as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, but again, I'm not interested in, okay, I want to invent the new sound and then, do collect together. This is not my approach. As I mentioned to you, I had already have imagination in my head. And then how can I realize this with what is the similar to these sounds? How can put this all together? And then they really helped a lot. And it was a great experience. Yeah. And then actually we invented many different sounds together.
Yes.
So, but I'm not sure other people can play this. I think.
I mean, that is, yeah. I mean, as you say, if you do a good documentation, as you usually do with your sounds, why not? I mean, the way in which your music needs to be translated, it cannot be only the score. You need much more. I mean, it needs to be quite a personal interaction with you, and you have to explain your sounds in many different ways. So, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it is different, but maybe that is also quite interesting.
Can be.
And then you can create like a meta Uncanny Valley, the Uncanny Valley into the dual signal performance and the new one, and you see similarities and differences.
Exactly.
So conceptually, the piece it's very solid.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you.
Super. Hey, Han. So hey, thanks so much for.
Thank you for having me.
No, absolutely. It was very, very, very interesting and inspiring to hear all your perspective regarding your practice, regarding your compositional ideas, your vision of, in the end, contemporaneity in a way. So
I'm
thank
sorry
you.
that I sorry that we actually your question was too great. You know what that mean is each topic we need to talk like at least 1 hour, 2 hours.
I
But
know.
you brought so many great topics, and then I answer, and everything is like.
I know it was difficult. I wanted to hear all of them, and
We needed 12 hours for this.
exactly. So, but in any case, we got a very good overview, and thank you for joining us. And yeah, we'll see you soon in February for
are
your
you
next
coming?
episode.
Are you coming?
Sure. I will be there, and hopefully
I'm gonna cook.
Okay. Good.
You must come.
So for who is seeing this,
thank you.
next 8th of February, we have Hong Piece and Luis Coderapuzo in Gardunor in Basel. So see you.
Amazing. See you soon.